Hello everyone and welcome back to Pokemon Origins. Today we'll be looking at Uxie, Mesprit and Azelf, the Lake Guardians. Starting with Uxie, or the Japanese name Uxie, which is quite imaginative, is the knowledge Pokemon and its number is 480 in the National Dex. It is 0.3 meters tall or 1 foot and weighs in at 0.3 kilograms or 0.7 pounds. A quick fact here, Uxie along with Mesprit and Azelf are the lightest legendary Pokemon. Uxie is a psychic type and along with Mesprit and Azelf makes up the Lake Guardians, the legendary trio of the Sinnoh region. Uxie is a small grey fairy-like Pokemon with 2 grey tails that are each encrusted with a red gem. These are, presumably, 2 of the jewels which make up the red chain. The red chain being an item in Pokemon Diamond, Pearl and Platinum used by Cyrus to take control of the legendary Pokemon Dialga and Palkia with the ultimate goal to destroy the universe and make a new one. Uxie has a partially yellow face with another red gem encrusted into its forehead. Its head faintly resembles that of a helmet or a human brain. Uxie always has its eyes closed due to the fact that it can wipe out the memory of those who look into its eyes, in the same way that looking into the Gorgon's eyes would turn you into stone. Uxie and the rest of the trio could possibly have originated from the Imperial Regalia of Japan, which are also called the 3 Sacred Treasures. Uxie would be the Yata no Kayame, which embodies wisdom and honesty. Uxie is also said to have hatched from the same egg as Mesprit and Azelf, which would make them trizygotic triplets. Uxie is genderless, but is referred to as male in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Time and Explorers of Darkness, and due to this there are no gender differences. In terms of the difference between the normal and shiny form, the yellow colour, which was a prominent colour in the normal design, has now been moved from the head to the body, and the head is now more of an orange colour. Pokedex entries tell us that it can wipe out the memory of those who see into its eyes, and it is mentioned in 5 or 6 entries that, when Uxie flew, people gained the ability to solve problems, stating it was the birth of knowledge. Uxie and Uxie may be a combination of Yukusaki, meaning future, Chi-Shiki, meaning knowledge, and Pixie. Alternatively, they may also be a combination of U and Pixie. Now looking at Mesprit. Mesprit, or its Japanese name Emrit, is known as the Emotion Pokemon and is number 481 in the National Dex. It shares the same heights and weights of Uxie, being 0.3 meters tall or 1 foot, and weighing 0.3 kilograms or 0.7 pounds, and is also a psychic type, along with Uxie and Azelf makes up the Lake Trio. Mesprit is very similar to Uxie in that it is a small, grey, fairy-type Pokemon that has 2 tails, each having a red jewel encrusted in them, which are again presumed to be 2 of the jewels that create the red chain. Mesprit has a largely magenta face with 4 long drooping appendages and a red gem encrusted into its forehead. Mesprit is based after a spirit or a sprite. Mesprit and the rest of the trio could have possibly originated from Imperial Regalia of Japan, which are also called the 3 Sacred Treasures. Mesprit would be the Yasakani no Majatama, which embodies benevolence. As before, Mesprit is said to have hatched from the same egg as Uxie and Azelf. Mesprit is genderless, although it is referred to as a female in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Time and Explorers of Darkness, and Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Sky, and thusly, there are no gender differences. Looking at shiny differences now, the magenta colour on the head has been replaced with what can only be described as a hot pink, and the blue has now become a sandy yellow. The shiny colour reminds me a lot of Skitty. Pokedex entries state that when Mesprit flew, people learned the joy and sadness of living. It was the birth of emotions. They all tell how Mesprit brought emotion to the world, much like Uxie brought knowledge. Emrit may be a combination of Emu, which means to smile, emotion, and Esprit, or sprite. Mesprit may be a combination of me and Esprit, which is French for spirit, or sprite. And finally, topping off the Lake Trio, Azelf. Azelf, or a gnome, evidently someone's idea of a joke, is known as the Willpower Pokemon and is number 482 in the National Dex. It also shares the heights and weights of Uxie and Mesprit, being 0.3 meters tall or 1 foot, and weighing 0.3 kilograms or 0.7 pounds. Like the previous 2, it is also a psychic type, and along with Uxie and Mesprit makes up the Lake Trio. Azelf is a small, greyish-blue fairy-like Pokemon. It has 2 tails that each have a red jewel on them. These are also, presumably, 2 of the jewels which complement the red chain. Azelf has a partially cyan face with a red gem encrusted into its forehead. Azelf has a cone-shaped head with elf ear-like protrusions on each side. Azelf appears to be a pixie or a fairy, although its Japanese name suggests that it's a gnome. Azelf and the rest of the trio could possibly originate from the Imperial Regalia of Japan, which are also called the Three Sacred Treasures. Azelf would be the Kusunagi, which embodies valour. Azelf is said to have hatched from the same egg as Mesprit and Uxie. Azelf is genderless, although it is referred to as a male in Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, Explorers of Time and Explorers of Darkness, and therefore there are no gender differences. Looking at the shiny differences now, the body now appears to be sandy yellow again, and they have ended up swapping the sign on the head for a much deeper darker blue, similar to some of the water types in the games. Pokédex entries say that when Azelf flew, people gained the determination to do things. It was the birth of willpower. They also say it sleeps at the bottom of the lake to keep the world in balance. And now onto the names. Agnome may be a combination of agnosticism, which is Greek for knowledge, and gnome. Azelf may be a combination of Azur or us and elf. It could also be a corruption of self. The height chart here clearly shows that they are all being less than half a meter tall and are slightly bigger than my head. And finally the sprite comparisons. Uxie in all its generation sprites is floating around and doesn't change much. Again with Mesprit it seems to be floating around having a good time. And in all of Azelf's, it seems to be rising up or at least looking up, but again it's just suspended in the air. So guys, that's it for this episode of Pokemon Origins. Leave a like and a comment down below, and if you haven't already, subscribe. I'll be seeing you guys next time. Goodbye.